This video is dedicated to Antonio Rouse. Antonio, thank you. Brallin Skyshark Rider and Shabraz the Skyshark versus Keiga the Tide Star, Yawgmoth Thran Physician, and Kresh the Bloodbraided. We've got a pretty decent curve there. I would rather have some mana rocks in hand, but you never know, we might draw into them. We'll keep that. We get ourselves into another land, so hopefully we don't end up getting screwed this game. We'll just play out the tap land. I would rather hold on to the Careful Study for when we've got at least one of our commanders out. The first spell of the game, not too much going on in the early game, but the first spell is Prismatic Lens from the mono blue player. And then passing it straight over to us. And we draw into Swords to Plowshares, so we might as well hold up Swords to Plowshares. Highly doubt we're going to be using that, but we'll hold it up anyway, along with the Dovin's Veto. The mono black player has already gotten themselves into an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and now another spell in Palladium Mere from the mono blue player, so doing a good job of ramping over there. Noteworthy that Drone of War, patron of the channel, has brought Kresh to the table, but has also kept a one-lander apparently, and is not getting into another land for the second turn. More counter magic for us, so we just go in for the Sulphur Falls and pass the turn yet again, likely going in for Smothering Tithe next turn. Vampiric Tutor, yeah, thankfully, they had Urborg come down from the Yawgmoth player, and Vampiric Tutor being cast into, most likely, getting them into a land. Yeah, that's pretty lucky. There is a Cryptghast from our opponent. Do our opponents have removal for that is the question. Yeah, with an Urborg in play, I think it is worth a counter spell on that. And then thanks to all the ramp, the first commander of the game can come down. That is a turn 4 commander. That costs 6 mana. And when that dies, they can gain control of a target creature. So we've got Swords to Plowshares for that. I'm actually just going to hope that we can land the Smothering Tithe. And then we'll likely get a mana for Swords to Plowshares if we want it. Mystic Retrieval will be good to grab us back the swords or a counter or a wheel or something. But as of right now, like I said, we're going in for the enchantment. Bloomtender came down last turn for the Jund player as well. So yeah, maybe they've either gotten really lucky in getting into lands off the top now into Skyshroud Claim. Either that, or they just missed making a land on the second turn, passed through the turn by accident. Anyway, the mana concerns are done with now over there. And a Cabal Coffers in hand, wow, so they had both Urborg and Cabal Coffers straight off the bat. And that might mean that the Smothering Tithe goes straight down, and it does. Yeah, that's really unlucky. Soul Guide Lantern, that's a really good one, really good graveyard hate there. Don't think we're getting our Smothering Tithe back anyway, but we do have a means of getting Counterspell back with Mystic Retrieval. Don't think we would have spent it on that anyway. And when it enters the battlefield, they can exile a target card from a graveyard. I think I would have gone for Cryptghast personally. Don't know of many means that Jeskai can get Smothering Tithe out of the bin. Now, Fascination. Each player draws X cards. Well, I can't say I mind that. It's a good job the Smothering Tithe went down for our opponents. And we get into the lands that we needed. Don't have an unlimited hand size, unfortunately. But we do have the Curiosity for our commander. Do we have a means of discard? We've got Careful Study. We might be able to go infinite next turn, actually. I'm going to take the 5 from the Keiga. And then what do we need to do next turn? It's Brallin for 4 mana. We'll have a land, so that'll be 3 additional mana after that. We go Curiosity and Careful Study. And that goes infinite, doesn't it? With everyone tapped out. Okay, so let's attempt this. There's a Reflecting Pool for another white mana. We'll go in for the Brallin. And then we just have to hope that we don't have to counter anything here. There might be a Force of Will at the table. especially over here with a full grip of 7. Let's attempt a curiosity. And that is, whenever the enchanted creature deals damage to a player, you may draw a card. So now, obviously, whenever we draw the Brallin, we'll deal damage. Whenever we deal damage, gets a plus counter on it. So let's go for the Careful Study. And we get into Supreme Verdict. Let's just get rid of a couple of lands, I think, or we can keep one land. Yeah, let's get rid of Return to Dust. And then because we discarded a couple of cards, we deal damage to our opponent twice. That has us draw some cards. And we get into even more lands. And then the other trigger comes along and we draw even more from the Curiosity. And then it's a case of passing the turn and discarding. I have to get rid of 7 cards from hand though. So I'm just getting rid of the Chromatic Lantern as well as some lands. And then we're going to draw even more cards thanks to discarding the 7 cards. And we're just going to have to discard everything again at the cleanup step. This is very similar to what you can do with the Gitrog monster. You just discard a bunch of lands, draw a bunch of lands with Gitrog, and then you've got to discard them all down again to 7. So we're going to take our opponents out here. As someone's just pointed out, we may well mill ourselves first, so we'll have to see what happens. We've got... how many cards? We've got 52 left in the library. And yeah, look at all those cards we're drawing. So we go back to the cleanup step. We've got 28 cards in our hand, so we'll deal 21 damage to everyone here. Yeah, it might be that we do mill ourselves out. Not even looking at the cards that I'm getting rid of at this point, to be honest. And I think we are going to mill ourselves here. What is it? We deal 3 damage with our Brallin every time we discard, which means we draw 3 cards. So that's 3 times 21, is it, at this point? I think we said 21, which was 63 cards we draw. So we are going to mill ourselves here. But I think it is fun to show you all the type of thing that you can do with Brallin. Clearly, I don't know what I'm doing with this deck yet. Some kind of fling ability might be good. In all honesty, from what I've played of Brallin and Shabraz so far, I'm actually just liking Brallin. I don't really like both of them in play together. I'm thinking maybe you just don't focus on getting the Skyshark out and you just go all in on the red deck type plan with some blue and white support. Oh, and the game's gone and crashed. Just pointed out to my opponents there, or the message didn't come up. I would have gotten milled out there, so yeah, we wouldn't have won that game or anything. So there's some maths to be done when you go for the whole curiosity thing with your commander. You're going to draw 3 cards, assuming you've got 3 opponents, every time you discard 1 card. So you're either going to have to not rely on the cleanup step, and instead just rely on the fact that you can discard at instant speed with one of your permanents, or just work the maths out beforehand. But yeah, this is obviously a bust because of my gameplay decision there and my not knowing how to play the deck, so this will just be a little bit of bonus footage, and hopefully you will enjoy the next game that we play with these commanders. Brallin, Skyshark Rider, and Shabraz the Skyshark versus Prossh, Skyraider of Kher, Ludevic, Necro-Alchemist, partnered with Ravos, Soultender, and Golos, Tireless, Pilgrim. And one of the last games I played, we got totally flooded, so I'm certainly not going to keep that one. Okay, I'd rather have Reforged the Soul on top, obviously. I'd rather have some rocks as well. I mean, we're really doing nothing with that hand. It's a little bit greedy, but I am going to mulligan again. Okay, that is much better. We get into Reforge the Soul again, but we'll actually be able to cast it given the mana. So let's put the Tireless Tribe on the bottom. And we'll say done. Looks like we're not the only one getting down a turn 1 Mana Crypt. The Prossh player has decided to go for that, and someone went for, there we go, Street Wraith from the partner player. And it's just 2 life to draw a card. They get themselves into some coloured mana as well, which is good because High Market won't generate any colours. And then getting into Rampant Growth as well. Wow, so going down to 4 cards in hand, and that will take them into red most likely. And it turns out that we've got a viewer of the channel as well, along with 2 patrons. Logaz MD is a viewer of the channel, and then we've got Go Batman, a patron on the partners, and then Drone of War is playing Golos. I think this is the Mutate Golos. I can't remember, I get all the different Golos decks mixed up. Anyway, we get into our third colour. Let's just drop an island. We can go into Mana Crypt and Mindstone. And then in one of the previous games, we actually comboed out and broke the client. I was worried about decking myself in this game, and then because it was one of my first times playing the deck, I mean, this is only the 3rd time I've played it, and I haven't really had all that good of games with it so far, to be honest, unless you do count the last game as a good one. But yeah, point being that I don't know the deck inside and out yet, and I forgot entirely that for the Ophidian Eye combo that we got off last turn, or last game even, I do have an Eldrazi that we can discard and shuffle our library back into the deck, ready to draw into even more cards and discard even more stuff. So we actually weren't going to deck ourselves like I thought we were, and we could ping our opponent to death off the back of Ophidian Eye and Brallin Skyshark Rider. And it looks like we might be able to get that going again. But I don't really want to get it going again this early in the game, to be honest. It's just noteworthy that we can do that. If there's any paper players out there, then you could go for that. I actually put the discard effect on the bottom, that 1 white creature. And I think it's something like a 0-2 or a 0-3. And you can discard a card to buff its toughness, but the point being that whenever you discard a card, this deals damage to all of your opponents. You would draw 3 cards if you have Ophidian Eye on your commander, and then the 3 cards would most likely take you over the top, and you are going to have to discard down to hand size. When you discard, you deal even more damage, and it just loops over and over again forever. And we could have triggered the discard with the cheap white creature, but like I said, decided not to do it in the early game, because it does break the client apparently. Alright, we get into another coloured source, which I don't mind. Let's shock that in and get into our Brallin. And while I was chatting away, I didn't actually look at what my opponents were doing there. So it's an expedition map from Golos. A Street Wraith, we saw that get discarded. Evolving Wilds there from the partner player. And then over here, there is now a Mountain, a Kessig Wolf Run. And they've gotten themselves down a Perforos as well, which is obviously going to be really good once they get their commander down. I think we'll actually see their commander next turn. Now more fast mana in a Sol Ring from the Golos player, so we might actually have to try the Ophidian Eye combo again. Anvil of Bugden, yeah, that's actually going to help us trigger our Ophidian Eye. The problem is, this is why I would have kept the white creature had I have thought that we were going to have this faster game. The Bugden is going to trigger our commander once we discard. The only problem is that Ophidian Eye is going to have to sit on our commander throughout the entire turn. Skyshroud Claim from the Prossh player. I was scared that we were going to see the Prossh come down, but apparently not. Oh, actually, hang on. I had no idea that Ophidian Eye had Flash. You know, I just looked at that card just on the off chance that it has Flash, and tried my luck, and well, Ophidian Eye has Flash. I never knew that. Okay. So we could actually go for the Ophidian Eye in response to the Anvil of Bugden, and I am... Oh, a Smothering Tithe, wow. Did we just go Smothering Tithe instead? This is panning out just like the last game did. Yeah, alright, that changes things. Let's go for the Smothering Tithe instead, and hope that the Jund player doesn't have removal. We'll get rid of Mystic Sanctuary, and we will deal 1 damage to each opponent. We'll drop a Plains, and we can probably go for the Ophidian Eye at some point during the next turn cycle before our next turn, because we're going to have a mana from the Smothering Tithe most likely. I'm also going to hold back the Brallin because I'm worried about Prossh. Prossh doesn't have trample, I don't think. No, I mean it may well get trample, but we'll just play around the fact that it doesn't have it for now. There is a Kessig Wolf Run in play to give it trample, but they might have to tap out to get their Prossh down. Yeah, we'll see. I'm just going to hold back and play it cautiously. Anyhow, Expedition map gets cracked in response to our end step, and a command tower is revealed. Definitely not the worst land that you can reveal off of an Expedition map. And deciding to pay for the Smothering Tithe trigger, but they will have to pay again thanks to the Anvil of Bugden. It's going to make everyone's life difficult if they want to pay for all these Tithe triggers. But they do decide to pay for it, and then they go for a command tower into Exploration, 5 cards in hand, and they do have a shock land, so they get that down in tapped as well. And no treasure tokens for us. We are given 2 treasures by GoGo, and they're obviously not struggling on lands because they decide to discard a plains to the Anvil. Oh, and now a Windfall. Well, now's as good a time as any to go for Ophidian Eye onto Brallin. And we're just going to have to hope that the Jund player doesn't have removal. Although if they've got removal, they were probably going for it anyway. Looks like they are F6'd, so yeah, this is going to be one hell of a windfall. What's the highest card? They've got 5 cards in hand, so we're all going to discard and draw 5. And that's a lot of Smothering Tithe triggers as well. Then we've also got Return to Dust and Whirlwind of Thought. Just have to keep our fingers crossed that the client doesn't crash here. Yeah, so like I said, I don't really want to go for this in the early game, but I'm just trying my luck here, and it might be that the Jund player has removal for our commander anyway. We didn't draw into any counter magic, unfortunately. So there we go, with all these Smothering Tithe triggers completed, we will try our luck with this now. Maybe if I don't auto-yield to absolutely everything, the client won't break. So there we are, we've got some protection into Fairy's protection now, and it might be that we have to go Return to Dust onto this as well, depending on what our opponent does this turn. But like you saw in the last game, what we do is discard down to hand size. We'll have to be careful not to play the Reliquary Tower. Might actually have to take it out of this deck so that we can go for this line of play. We discard down to hand size at the end of the turn. Ping each of our opponents each time we do that. That draws us cards per 1 damage we deal. And obviously that keeps our hand above 7 every time we do that. So then we have to discard further. And it's an infinite chain. Eventually we discard our, I think it's Kozilek we've got in this deck. That shuffles everything back in. And then we can just carry on from there. There it is, Prossh, Skyraider of Kher. We are going to see a lot of damage occur here. What is it? It's per mana spent to cast it, so that is 12 damage coming in at all of us. And it doesn't have haste, thankfully. I think we go for Return to Dust onto the Perforos. And then Prossh brings in the Cobalt tokens, and they've got 4 mana available at the moment, including 1 floating. And there's haste in the form of a Lightning Greaves. This is exactly why I held up the commander as a blocker, but yeah, we're not going to have enough power and toughness to kill it off. Yeah, so we're going to end up trading commanders if we're not careful. It might be worth a Teferi's Protection, but I think I'd like to keep hold of that as well, to be honest. Alright, and surprisingly the Prossh doesn't come in at us. It goes in towards Drone of War. Putting everyone, well, all of our opponents anyway, at a more even life total. So I think our plan at the moment is we definitely want the Whirlwind of Thought. We want to hold up Teferi's Protection. I think we go in for Glinthorn Buccaneer as well. Yeah, so anyway, we'll see what we can do this turn. We certainly don't want to empty our hand. Draw into Blasphemous Act. Oh, and then we've got the Anvil of Bugden as well. Alright, let's get rid of the Reliquary Tower. Certainly don't want to play that when we're going for this type of win. Brallin, Skyshark, Rider is going to deal 3 damage to everyone because we discarded that. Might actually be worth including Anvil of Bugden in this deck. Anyway, Per damage dealt, we draw a card. So that's 1 damage to each player, which obviously totals 3. And then we've got a Swiftfoot Boots as well. Let's play the Reflecting Pool. We will play Whirlwind of Thought. And then let's go for the Swiftfoot Boots. And that will draw us a card because it's a non-creature spell. We're going to draw a lot of cards from Whirlwind of Thought. Nice Soul Ring is nice. Get into Wear and Tear, which I don't think is going to be too much use to us. We might want to take out the Lightning Greaves, but I think we win this turn anyway. Let's put the boots onto our commander. Then we'll get down the Buccaneer. We'll play Careful Study. This will draw us 2 and discard 2. And per card we discard, we're going to deal 1 damage to our opponent. So that will be 2 damage to our opponents on 2 different triggers, which is a bunch of triggers on Ophidian Eye. So yeah, things are going to go crazy this turn, I think. So there we go. Glinthorn Buccaneers is going to double up the damage here. I'm trying to do as much damage to my opponents as I can without technically going infinite. 1, because it'll crash the client, like I've said. But 2, because it's a bit obnoxious, although you could argue that this is obnoxious anyway. There is our Eldrazi, ready to discard. And we continue to draw with Ophidian Eye. Then that's more damage from the Buccaneer. Then we've got a cycling card with the Triome. Oh wow, we could go for a wheel, couldn't we? Let's go for the Ascendancy, because that is a loot effect. And that obviously triggers our commander nicely. And then is Windfall going to break the client because we're discarding so much stuff? I don't know if we'll be able to resolve the trigger from Kozilek during the cleanup step is the only problem. I think we've got this game anyway, so let's just assume that we win this one even if the client does break. We'll get a loot first from the Jeskai Ascendancy. Oh, and we draw a card from Whirlwind of Thought as well. We draw and just discard the... we'll discard the Butcher of Truth now, so that it's not as many triggers on the stack later on. Really just playing around the client breaking. Go decides to scoop it, which is fair enough, because this has turned into a solitaire round. Then Glinthorn Buccaneer triggers as well. Kozilek shuffles everything away. And we will continue to draw cards. We're up to 65 cards in the library now. And now it's time to see if the client can manage, because we've got 19 cards in our hand, so if there's any mathematicians out there that can work this out, then you can leave it in the comments, because I'm not thinking the client survives this. Well, it's managed to throw the triggers up at us. I don't think we can put these on the stack automatically for some reason. Anyway, we discarded... Oh, we've got the win here, haven't we? Because we discarded 19 cards to the Windfall. So that's 19 damage twice, once from the Glinthorn and once from our commander. So that is, what is that, 38 damage to each of our opponents. Although this is what I was saying in the last game, it might be that we deck ourselves before we can have the Kozilek trigger resolve. Yeah, we've got Kozilek back in our hand. I don't think we can discard it at instant speed, so that might be something that we need to play around, is making sure that we can discard at instant speed, so that we can shuffle everything back when this happens. Although saying that, the Ophidian's Eye is... Yeah, Ophidian Eye is a May ability, so we actually don't have to draw cards, so yeah, we've definitely got it here. We're not going to deck ourselves. So here's the moment of truth. The last Brallin trigger goes on the stack, and we'll see if the Smothering Tithe triggers. Break the client. I think it's... What was it? 12 cards and 3 opponents? Or was it just 2 opponents? It's either 24 triggers or 36. That looks like 24 to me. Alright, well they managed to go on the stack as well. Unfortunately as well, our opponents have to click no for every single Tithe trigger, which is quite annoying. There's no auto no for Smothering Tithe for some reason. Just telling my opponents that I'm grateful for them playing it out, because it is only turn 4, and yeah, this is really obnoxious. All on the back of a mana crypt. So if anyone ever argues with you that there's no problem with fast mana, then you can show them a video like this. And now here we go with the Brallin triggers, and they will obviously trigger the Ophidian Eye, and I'm going to say no to these. So let's say auto no and auto yield. The client seems to be very sluggishly making its way through the stack here, although I think Logaz is... I was going to say Logaz was holding priority. I've experienced that before myself. I don't think they actually were holding priority, even though the timer was ticking down. I think because everything was automated on the stack, the client just struggled way too much. We were getting 2 Ophidian Eye triggers per trigger that our commander had, so yeah, it was slowly ticking down, and then it just ground to a halt, and yeah, as you can see, the client has crashed. So gonna have to retire this deck, I think. I did build the deck around not really Shabraz. We're really using Shabraz for the colours. Pretty much built it around Brallin, and so we can go for Ophidian Eye and what's the other one? Curiosity, I think it's called. But if the thing that the deck is built around is going to break the client, then I think we're going to have to retire this deck. Something that you can play in paper at least, and you can show your opponents what the loop is, and then ask them if they all get peppered to death by your commander. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed these games from Brallin, Breaker of Clients. Big thank you to my opponents for playing this one out, or trying to play it out in this game at least. And yeah, big thank you to the 2 patrons, Go and Drone of War, who supported me in this gameplay. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you.